Charles is here to give us some pointers about audio and how we can treat audio in Adobe Premiere Pro. He is a sound engineer and musician. Charles.
Okay, so I'm going to go through the basic level of repairing or enhancing audio that you've recorded. But the golden rule of recording is what goes in is what comes out. So if you're putting a bad recording into your thing, you're kind of going to get something quite bad out of it. You can enhance it and improve it, but the answer to that is try your best to get a good recording. Some of the rules about recording, if you were talking about voice initially here, rather than Foley or something. So you want the microphone close, but not too close, because if it's too close, it'll distort. So digital distortion is the first great big no-no. So be very conservative with your levels. Check, you get the person who you're going to be recording to speak quite loudly, louder than they probably would speak in the actual clip that you're filming, just to make sure that it doesn't go into the distortion, into the red zone on the metering or whatever. So always be conservative with your levels and expect that they're going to get louder, because especially when people laugh, their laughing is like 5 times louder than they're talking. So that's a really common problem. Someone will be talking in a conversation and one of them will laugh and it's like, wow, that's loud.
So what will you do about that?
Well, I'd get them to laugh, or get them to speak louder than you're going to, just so you've got like, that's worst case scenario volume, that's as loud as I'm going to get. Well, and obviously if there's a sequence where they're going to be shouting or arguing or something, there's no point checking the mic level with them just talking like this. You've got to get them to shout.
It's rehearsing.
Yeah, preparation is the same as setting up a shot with your lighting and your white balance or whatever. It's just as the same with audio, to make sure that that it's not going to distort, and record a bit as well, because often with digital things you're using little adapters between the cables, the microphone and the computer or the camera. These little tiny plug adapters, if they're only not quite plugged in properly, you'll get a lot of problems where it won't record anything. It'll record it out of phase. It'll just make a mess. So always do a test recording, because the same as shooting something, it's really hard and painful to go and do it all again. Another thing is make sure the microphone, is reasonably close to the person though, because you'll get lots of ambience, which is a real problem. If the sound is recorded in a great big room, the voice will have lots of ambience on it that is terrible to listen to and almost impossible to get rid of. You can add that, which I'll go into in a minute, but it's very hard to get rid of it. But I'm going to show you some ways of getting around common problems with audio. We've got this clip.
What? No, nothing.
It's just a random.
It's fine.
I mean,
You all right, John?
there isn't actually a lot wrong with it, but I'll just show you the things we can do if there were something wrong with it. You select the clip that we're working on, which is, we've only got one, so it's that one, and you go to the audio tab up here and go to the edit. The browse tab is just music, library music that you can drag into your clip. So we're going to the edit mode, and then it opens this big list of lots of different things that I'm basically just going to go through these as a list. So the first thing to look at is it opens like this, where you've just got these. They're kind of all the same, to be honest. It's just giving you presets for different types of audio repair that you might want to do. Dialogue, music, sound effects, ambient. So we'll go for dialogue because that's really what we're looking at. And then if you click on the presets, it's got lots of presets that will cover a general situation. Like if you want it to sound like someone's voice is coming out of a radio, or out of a telephone, that really tiny voice effect that you get. You can just click on one of these and that will do that to the voice.
Automatically.
Yeah, I've never used this, but if I click on this, it should. There you go. It sounds. Obviously, it's too loud because that's another thing to realise with what the telephone voice effect is doing is taking out lots of frequencies, but massively boosting the mid range, which will make it louder. So let's take that off. So yeah, these are presets. Yeah, they're preset effects that could get you out of a situation. Like if you don't know how to do that radio effect, that's how to do it. But you need to edit the output volume because it makes it so much louder. Yeah. So I'm going to do just default, which is nothing. Yeah. It's not doing anything. So we'll go through these things. And one thing to notice is when you click on one of these parameters, they're kind of like presets.
It's fine.
But you get further parameters open up in general controls here, like just a slider. Yeah. But then they appear over here. Once I click one of these on, it will appear.
Effect controls.
Yeah. So you instance one of these here. Yeah. It's more deep parameters, complex parameters will appear over here, so you can edit it. Okay. But often these will do anyway. So loudness, I think that all that doing is putting a general kind of volume level to the audio. So if something's really low, it'll boost it up to a kind of acceptable volume. Yeah. It's quite a general kind of thing. But if you've got takes from lots of different locations or different times, if you put that, it might level them all out. So when you're playing your clip back, if it jumps from one that's really loud then to another one that was recorded really quietly, that should kind of normalise them, level them out a bit. But so this is the interesting, where it starts getting interesting. Repair.
Nothing to report. You all right?
Reduce noise. That'll reduce if you've got a lot of hiss on the microphone, a lot of background noise. If there's like a river behind where you've recorded, that will.
Yes. Why would you think something happened?
Your left eye keeps. You can hear there. There's a lot of like computer machine noise or air conditioner noise. That gets rid of it, but the problem is it affects the voice as well. So you can turn it right down, and sometimes you can get away with it. So
it's fine. Nothing.
You can hear if you turn it right up, it sounds terrible.
Your left eye keeps twitching, and you're sweating profusely.
And that's without it. So often the way to do it is just to edge it up.
It's fine. Nothing to report. You all right, John? Yes. Why would you think something happened?
You see, that's better on a tiny setting. It's not affected his voice, but it has reduced the background noise.
It keeps twitching and you're sweating profusely.
So that's always a really useful feature. That is, but it's odd that it defaults to there. It's quite severe. But so move it down so it's right down there.
It's fine. Nothing to report. You all right, John?
Yeah, because it's not affecting his voice, but it's so that's the first thing. But you'll notice now that it's appeared over here. Yeah. So you'll have frequencies. That's what it's reducing.
Keeps twitching and you're sweating profusely.
And this is what it's left, and that's what it's taking out the top bit.
You all right?
That's just the noise. It's a very clever plugin. I mean, if you do that, that'll just focus on the lower part of the sound and leave the top part alone, which is quite useful.
Keeps twitching and you're.
And then you can, if you select that. The output, that's previewing what it's taking out. Oh, okay. So that's what it's removing. Yeah. So when that's on zero, it's not going to do anything. But,
you all right, John?
But if you.
So what situation would you use this if it's recorded quite low?
You'd use this quite a lot, I think, but on a very, very minimal setting, so it doesn't destroy the voice, because that's the important thing. If it destroys the voice in any way, take it off and try and get around the problem of background noise another way, because there's nothing wrong with background noise. It's part of life.
But if you've got like a situation where there's a really busy road behind your dialogue. You can't really get rid of that, but you could adjust it to make it sound a bit better.
Yeah, it's called attenuating it. It can attenuate the balance because of what it's showing in here. Because of what it's showing in here.
Profusely.
You know, because the guy's voice, his frequencies aren't down here anyway. That's why it's not affecting his voice. All the red stuff is what it's taking away.
It's fine. Nothing to report. You all right?
So it's not affecting these high frequencies up here.
Yes. Why would you think something happened?
Because his voice is probably going to start around here frequency-wise.
Your left eye
So he's
keeps
taking a bit
twitching and you're
out,
sweating profusely.
but not much.
What? No, nothing. It's fine. Nothing to report.
So
You all right,
it's...
John? Yes. Why would you think something happened?
So the more you take it up, the more frequencies it's taking out at the top, which is when it starts affecting the sound of his voice. So it's a tiny thing, but it's really worth doing. And these are really useful, where you can preview what it's doing. You can hear that rumble, that's what it's removing.
Okay.
So it's really useful.
Okay.
And that these are different ways that it responds to frequencies, and that's a general one, all frequencies. I mean, I'd go on where it's cutting just the low frequencies. So it's a high pass filter.
Right.
So it's letting high frequencies pass through it, but focusing on the low things. But generally speaking, you can just put a general on one. But it's a lifesaver sometimes. Yeah, it won't remove a whole street of traffic, but generally the traffic noise will be a lower frequency than the person's voice, so it will just take out. So again, that's slightly similar to the next one, to be honest.
Rumble.
Yeah. Let's see what the parameters for this are. Yeah, that's a low pass filter basically.
It's fine. Nothing to report.
See, that's too much. It's removed. It's changed his voice.
Your left eye keeps twitching and you're sweating profusely.
What's rumble though?
Rumble is these really low frequencies. Like if you've got, you know, when you sit in your house and there's a truck waiting outside, you can hear that constant rumble. That's what it's called. And that often happens when you're filming as well. The car will sit outside running its engine. You don't hear the high frequencies of the car because it's outside. You hear the frequencies down here. So this is basically a low cut. So you can see, look, it's because these are the low frequencies, these are the high frequencies. So it's cutting these low frequencies, and you'll be able to set it where you want it. So it's just really low. These are incredibly low. They'll only be heard by whales. You know, a human voice cannot possibly talk at this really low frequency here.
So basically, when you talk about frequencies, you're talking about adjusting frequencies to make it just sound better. I mean, that sounds really obvious. Well,
this is reducing frequency. We'll get into adjusting frequencies to make it sound better. This is more repair. Well, the section is called repair. This is more things that you do before you got into enhancing the voice, because it's a matter of chipping away at the different problems, and they've done it in the right order. Right, we take the noise out. Okay, now we take the rumble out. Okay. And the de-hum is again quite similar to that. It's just electrical devices.
Yeah, like air conditioning or something.
Yeah, they all. Let me just switch that up.
Something happened. Your left eye keeps twitching and you're sweating profusely. What? No, nothing.
You'll often get it where you plug into the mains, you plug your power supply in for your camera, and it'll start buzzing, and they're always at these frequencies. So you just click one or the other, and it'll just clean it up immediately. It's amazing.
It's fine. Nothing to report. You all right, John? Yes. Why would you think something happened? Your left eye keeps twitching and you're sweating profusely. What? No,
this hasn't really got any in this recording, but that's what it's for. If you've got a constant low-level buzzing, low-level electrical sounding hum, this will get rid of it. The de-hum. It's an electrical problem. It's not how you record it or anything. It's when lots of things are plugged into a laptop or a camera, you get an earth loop, and it creates an electrical sound, and it's always one of those two frequencies. Okay. So that'll get rid of that. Okay. So these are all just tidying up a bad recording, really. Background noise, low frequencies, and a hum, electrical hum. This is right. So now we're getting. Let me just switch all those off. De-essing is a really interesting. That's what it says. De-ess. It's a very much a studio kind of piece of equipment. What it does, let me see how
Fine, nothing to report. You all right, John?
So
Yes. Why would you think something happened? Your left eye keeps twitching, and you're sweating profusely. What? No, nothing. It's fine. Nothing to report. You all right, John? Yes. Why would you think something happened?
So what a de-esser does, it kind of does what it's called. It removes the S, like because S's are so loud especially on cheaper microphones. They accentuate the S. And when you look at a voice recording like the waveform, the S's are sometimes like 3 times louder, but they're really short sounds, so your ears don't really pick it up. But if it was played in a cinema or on a big sound system or something, it would be really painful. So I've never used this one. So what it does,
Your eye keeps twitching, and you're sweating profusely. What? No, nothing.
because there aren't many S's in what he's saying, there is later on.
Right, John? Yes. Why would
Seen that S? So we basically need to find the frequency where it's S'ing, where the S is. And what this does, you find the frequency that the S is set at, which will be quite high, probably higher than that.
think something happened? Your left eye keeps twitching.
And it's a juggling, balancing act between. So let's.
What? No, nothing.
It's a balancing act between finding the frequency that
It's fine. Nothing to report.
that his S's happen at, and it will then shut it down. It'll turn the volume down when it hears something of that frequency. It's and you want it really narrow like this. So that little black line is basically the frequencies that it's going to affect. If it hears something in that area, it'll turn it down. So it looks that spike there. So you want it really narrow band, really really narrow.
So it only affects.
It only affects that.
Your
So
left eye
the
keeps
threshold.
twitching, and you're sweating profusely. What? No, nothing.
You see, it's not doing anything.
It's fine. Nothing
So
to
you-
report. You all right, John? Yes. Why would you think something
We basically, because I've never used this one before, but that's what it works. That's how it works.
Your left eye keeps twitching.
Yeah, because
and you're
these
sweating profusely. What? No, nothing.
these presets.
It's fine. Nothing to report. You all right, John? Yes. Why would you think something happened?
Female
Your
voice.
left eye.
Yeah, and these presets, and a sh is the sh sound, which is always also extremely loud. They're the loudest sounds that you'll make. Are the sh
Keeps
and
twitching, and
the
you're sweating
and the
profusely.
s.
What? No, nothing. It's fine. Nothing to report. You all right, John?
So yeah, that's what that is. It's for removing peaks, but only removing those. So if somebody claps their hand or something, it won't like make that quieter because that's a different frequency. It's only working on a very specific band of sound. So like if someone's got false teeth and they whistle, you could set it to do that. So that's what a de-esser is. Reduce reverb.
Think something happened? Your
The echo.
left eye keeps
Yeah,
twitching,
it's
and
like
you're sweating profusely.
if this is recorded in a little office by the looks of it, but if it was recorded in a big space, a big hall, there'd be a lot of echo. It's called reverb. Echo is different to reverb, but that's what people kind of tend to call it.
Yeah.
So you sound like you're in a big room. So this,
What? No, nothing.
it's actually quite similar to reduced noise. That's kind of what it's doing. You can get away with it
Yes. Why would you think something happened?
again, but be careful because it can affect their voice. So you have to find a balance between the voice still sounds nice, but it's reduced some of the echo sound. Don't just think, great, I've removed all the echo, but the voice sounds terrible now. It's really balancing.
What does that do in effects control
Let's have a look.
if you put it on?
It's probably going to be a frequency-based thing again. Yeah,
Your left eye
yeah.
keeps
It's
twitching, and
it's
you're sweating
it's a more extreme version of reduced rumble, reduced noise. Reduced noise and reduced reverb are quite similar because if this was covered in noise, it kind of sounds like reverb anyway because it's extremely broad band of a very wide spectrum range. Noise has got every frequency in it, white noise or pink noise. has got every single frequency in it, which is a bit of a nightmare. So yeah, that's basically what these things do. But this is so they're really tidying something up that might be a bit messy. Let's just switch them off for now. So now we get into the more kind of hands-on things that we can do. Once we've tidied the voice up, we can then start controlling the sound like we want it. And a big problem with recording audio is keeping the level consistent. So you might have, if me and you are having a conversation, I'm probably a lot louder because I'm nearer the microphone.
Yeah.
So what this dynamics is doing is, well, it's called compressing. It's nothing to do with the file size when you compress a file, an MP4 or something. It's to do with compressing the dynamic range of a sound. So if at the bottom of the screen is no sound, the top of the screen is maximum level. That's your dynamic range. So this is a quiet sound at the bottom, a loud sound at the top.
Yeah.
So what it's doing, it'll bring the quieter sounds up and take the louder sounds down. So it narrows your dynamic range. So it's got less. So therefore it's easier to. So if someone suddenly shouts or claps their hands or coughs, they're not like 10 times louder than someone talking. So it's about limiting. It's actually called limiting as well. It's about squishing the dynamic range.
Right.
But the problem is, again, you have to be really careful with it, because what it'll do, I'll try and demonstrate it.
Nothing report. You all right, John?
If I turn it up,
Your left eye keeps twitching and you're sweating profusely.
it makes it a bit extreme. It can make things sound a bit robotic, because human voice has got dynamics in it, so you don't want to squash it completely. And also what it'll do, if one of these guys maybe put a cup on the table as he was talking or in between, it would make that cup really loud as well as making his voice really loud. So you have to, again, it's about balance, and it really helps to use it a bit, because it makes your job easier when it's on a big cinema sound system or on some decent speakers. Things will really leap out, and you don't want that to happen. You don't want like jump scares every time someone says something. You want it to be a little bit more easy to listen to.
What if a character's whispering and another character isn't whispering?
Yeah, that it will level them out. But the problem is when if it's set correctly, the threshold, you can set a threshold on here, which I think on here you do it. Yeah, this is your threshold here. Yeah, where it starts kicking in. That's its maximum output level there. Nothing, whatever happens, will go above that.
Yeah.
And again, there'll be presets in here. There'll be lots of presets. So.
It's fine. Nothing to report. You all right, John?
You see.
Yes. Why would you think something happened? Your left eye keeps twitching and you're sweating profusely.
This is the level, so it's not really doing anything at the moment. You see now, it's really squashed it there.
It's fine. Nothing to report. You all right, John?
So that's how much it's reducing. It's reducing the dynamics by like 10 dB. So it's kind of squishing your sound a bit.
Keeps twitching and you're sweating profusely. What? Nothing. It's fine. Nothing to report. You all right, John?
It's basically, it's almost like grading. It's almost like picture grading for sound. It kind of keeps the levels in check.
Okay.
But yeah, you have to be careful. If you use it too much, if I move a cup on this table, it'll make that really loud as well as someone whispering. Yeah. So, but the best way to do it is to chop your clips into sections probably, and not have a compressor on some of it. Yeah. But it's really vital for getting a good overall sound. Just a little bit of compression, because it stops peaks happening where if someone claps their hand all of a sudden, everyone in the cinema gets deafened because the clap is so loud.
Are you saying that this is compression?
Yeah.
Just this one?
This is compression, yeah.
The dynamics?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think they're probably not called it compression because people, use video compression to make files smaller. I think that probably, like on a music software, it's not really called dynamics, it's called a compressor.
Okay.
So that's what it's doing. It's squishing the dynamic range.
Okay, cool.
But now we're on, I think, this analyze thing will look at the source material and make up and have a good guess. Because if you see at the top it says focused, so that makes the voice really like punchy, and this is more kind of natural and neutral sounding. But I think these will just have a guess at what you want. But this is now, the EQ is probably the most important thing.
So just explain what EQ is then.
EQ is, most people recognise it. If I click on over here, these are your frequencies. You know, you have this in iTunes and Windows Media Player where you can boost certain frequencies in a sound spectrum. These are your high frequencies, 16 kilohertz at the top. That's very high. I mean, most people can't even hear that at that frequency, and dogs can, and small children can, but most people lose all that. And at the bottom, 31 hertz, that's very, very low bass that you'd hear on a you know, the bass part of a record, like the hip hop, like kick drum or the bass.
So
and this is everything
boosted.
in between, basically.
That's usually boosted.
Yeah, so where it's 0, it is not boosted. That's just neutral. So if you go above, it gives you 20, 25 or whatever dB, decibels of boosting it. So you have to be careful here, because if I boost, because these are the ones, like 1K is to get your radio effect. So
it's twitching and you're sorting.
Switch it on.
What? No, nothing. It's fine. Nothing to report. You all right, John?
So I switched it off.
You
see, because that's to get that radio effect, is to boost these frequencies and take these ones out. So you're losing all the bass part of the voice, but boosting the nasty part that you get out of a cheap speaker, out of a telephone. So
die keeps twitching and you're sorting profusely. What? No,
you can see.
It's fine.
Because I mean, there are presets in here. There probably is a
radio or something.
Yeah. Oh well, that was in.
It was.
But yeah, but generally, you'll have, if you want a radio effect, you can just use that thing up higher, up whatever it was up here.
So
but
just explain, like, what EQ is.
Well,
Just
EQ means
simple
equalization. Well, in simple terms, everything is split into. You know, when you hear a voice or any sound, it's made up of lots and lots of frequencies that build up that sound.
Right.
So let me get this image up again. Oh, no, not that one. This one, graphic equalizer. I mean, that's quite a basic one. It's only 10 frequencies, but that's enough for most things. In music software, there'll be 31 of these frequencies on a graphic equalizer. So basically, it's chopping any sound up into its component frequencies.
Okay.
So if we take out all the frequencies and just leave the high one, that's quite a good way of showing what it's doing. And you'll get used to training your ears to. So that's just very high frequency. And you can start adding the sound back in. That's lower. And then, so you can hear these frequencies coming in.
Left eye keeps twitching and you're sorting profusely. What? No, nothing.
And then we're down to the bass again. So it sounds better.
You all right, John?
And vice versa. If you take all the high frequencies out, it will sound muffled.
Why would you think something
And that's a major problem. Is usually the balance between too much bass and not enough treble.
Your left eye keeps twitching and you're sorting.
You do talk about treble, bass, and then high frequency. What other words? Treble, bass.
Well, there's mid frequency. You got treble is high frequencies, and bass is the low frequencies, and everything in between is lower mid, upper mid, higher mid, treble. But an equalizer, it's basically equalizing, balancing the frequencies of the sound so it sounds nice to your ear. Yeah, that's a reasonably well recorded, so it doesn't need much doing to it. But if someone's got a very thin voice, or maybe they were a long way from the microphone, if you boost, you can boost some of these lower frequencies, and they'll sound richer and warmer sounding.
Nothing to report. You all right, John?
Take out.
Yes. Why would you think something happened?
Is this a good time to mention if you've got an ADR, you've got added dialogue?
Yeah. If you've got ADR, then you're trying to blend it with stuff that's done on the microphone, camera mic or something. Yeah. They might sound wildly different. But yeah, this is where you can. If the ADR is recorded really close on a microphone, it's going to have more bass to it. So either take some of the bass out on that one or add some of the bass, lower frequencies in on the other one. It's all about balance. That's what an equalizer does. It equalizes everything sound-wise. But one good thing, one important thing is on a lot of recordings with microphones, you'll always have the rumble effect, which is, this is reduced rumble. And effectively, that reduced rumble we looked at earlier is almost exactly the same as just doing that, taking out the low frequencies on the equalizer.
Right. So this is a more manual way of doing it then.
Yeah. So it is doing the same thing. That's a low cut. So, but this is more fine, focusing on just specific frequencies. If I've got like a face mask on or something and I'm talking, my voice is going to be a bit muffled. So you might want to add some of these higher frequencies back in that the face mask has removed. And there's various presets and enhancers here that you can try with one of those and think, oh, there's the radio one there. Look, that's just makes it sound really thin.
Those are presets. What presets are there? Outside
intercom, that's going to be very thin.
Keeps twitching and you're sweating.
And that's going to be yeah. So these are just vocal presence. Will make it presence just means make things brighter.
What? Nothing.
And clearer. And you can blend in amounts of it as well. So you don't have to, it doesn't have to be all that. So you can see the waveforms moving there. It's boosting.
I just think you have to do it with headphones.
You definitely, or decent speakers, because on laptop speakers or little PC speakers, you're not going to hear these low frequencies, so you don't know that they're there. So it's really that's a big, because on a lot of recordings, if it's just a voice, I'd just take that out anyway, the low frequency, or put the rumble filter in, because a human voice doesn't go down that low. It hasn't got those frequencies in it, but they'll be in the recording as just rumble, room noise, traffic noise, fridge noise, air conditioner noise. So you can just take that out in the rumble remover, and it won't affect the sound of my voice. Because imagine if you've got 10 tracks of voices and audio, and they've all got a rumble on them. That's 10 times louder. That rumble is going to be when you play it in a cinema. It's going to feel like an earthquake. That it's going to be so loud, that rumble. And on laptop speakers, you won't hear it because they can't go that low. So there's just no way you'll hear them. So headphones are really, really important. And
not earphones, headphones.
Yeah, well, earphones are okay, but you need to spend more money on earphones to compete with headphones. Like fairly cheap headphones, you'll hear all these frequencies. Cheap earphones, you won't hear them. Because headphones speakers are bigger, they can put out more sound. So I'd definitely recommend, if you're editing sound, to do it on headphones partially. I mean, still do it on the laptop as well, but for checking things like this, especially there's no way you'll ever hear those frequencies on laptop speakers. No matter how good your laptop, they cannot possibly go down to 50 hertz. That is like a bass guitar, really, really low.
Right.
So if you don't put that in, or you don't check it on headphones, you won't know it's there. And when it's played on a big sound system, you'll just have this terrible rumble. So equalizing is really important for tidying things, but also for enhancing things, to make voices sound clearer. And what you were saying about two different people, ADR, if you add some ADR, big problem with ADR is to match it with existing, what you're seeing on the screen is what you're hearing. Because if something's recorded, this is in a little office, if that was recorded in a large room, their voices would be echoey. But then if you did the ADR, you're doing the ADR not in that room. So you have to try and create the ambience.
But that's when I'd suggest putting room tone.
Room tone,
but
also
in this environment anyway, they would have recorded room tone.
But room tone, yeah, is still not the same because it's not on the voice. So when you go to creative effects in here, you can simulate rooms. So if they were recorded ADR and you wanted to, and it was meant to be in a large building. You see, now he's in like a church sound, which ADR won't do that because it won't respond to his voice.
Your left eye keeps twitching, and you're sweating
But
profusely.
obviously it doesn't fit this because it doesn't need any because it's recorded in the right space. But it can really help if you've added one voice. If one of them's recorded in this situation and one of them's added as ADR to kind of balance to make them sound like they're in that room.
Yeah.
And you can, that'll be just a small room.
What? Nothing.
Just a little tiny bit of that will really help.
Yeah.
And again, you've got parameters over here for the room, lots of presets. So these are more music related, but the ones here are more film related. But room ambience, room size.
You all right, John? Yes. Why would you think something happened? Your left eye keeps twitching, and you're sweating.
You can really tailor it.
What? Nothing. It's fine. Nothing to report.
You can really tailor the sound, and high frequency. You can take some of the treble off of it, so it sounds more of a dull kind of room. Because something like a bathroom is really bright sound. Like that, but they're in an office, so it wouldn't be as bright because there's lots of soft furnishings and things.
It's fine.
So you can really help.
You got a warm room preset on.
Yeah.
And then you're going in and editing.
And just editing the fine parameters of it, like damping. That's to really mute it so it doesn't sound bright. You can take out the bass out of the reverb. There's lots of things you can fiddle with to tailor it to kind of to what you're seeing.
Yeah.
To match the sound, because it can really ruin something if someone's talking in a massive cathedral yet their voice sounds like they're in a tiny cardboard box. It just doesn't work. It's not believable. So that's really, it's called creative, but it's more than just creative. It can make things more believable. So that's the basic run through of these things, and they're all per clip. So, if it jumped to another clip here, we could save. I think we could probably save this preset as our own custom preset and cut and paste it onto the other clips, or not. If there's a totally different outside scene and there's tons of traffic noise, you'd have to treat that one differently and reduce noise and things.
Okay.
So it's brilliant because it is specific to each selected clip. It's not an overall thing.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
Okay.
Should we stop there?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So that's that. Yeah.